This is the Nordstar 42, and it's an interesting package. You can have it with or without a flybridge. It's got 2 separate cabins, 2 separate bathrooms, twin diesels with either stern drives or IPS, and you can have all of that to this boat spec, which is, you know, a pretty turnkey top spec for under £750,000, including VAT, which is pretty good going at this level. So in this video, we're going to give it the full tour and a sea trial and find out what it's like. I'm Jack Haynes. Welcome to YachtBuyer. Before we get into the driving experience though, make sure you subscribe to the YachtBuyer channel, hit subscribe and hit the bell icon, and you'll never miss one of our sea trials. I'd like to pretend that there's some skill in what I do, but really boats like this just make it so easy. We're up and running at 25 knots now, the engines are pretty inaudible, and because I've got trim assist on the stern drive legs, and we've got the zip wake system on auto, the boat is just doing the work for me really. I'm just having to steer and make sure we don't actually run into anything, but in terms of trim and where the boat sits in the water, you just choose how fast you want to go, and this boat is just so easy to drive quickly as well. I mean, we're doing 25 knots now to take it easily into the chop, but we could do 32 knots into this slight chop we've got here in the Solent, absolutely no problem. And you can probably tell by my posture how easy the boat is to drive. One hand on the wheel, sort of leaning on this fantastic Grammer suspension chair. I've got everything nice and close to me, so if I do have to make adjustments, I'm not having to stretch too far away to make them. And yes, I've got this enormous Simrad MFD in front of me, fully touchscreen of course, but I've also got manual switching down here, which when it's a bit bouncy is really useful, because it can be quite hard when you're bouncing around on a touchscreen to make fine adjustments. What's remarkable though is, although it's not particularly choppy, it is pretty breezy today, and you're just so well insulated from it inside this boat. Of course, it being stern drive, the engines are set a long way back in the hull, so that you're naturally quite well insulated from them. But close those aft doors, close the side doors, and it's really relaxing. I'm not having to raise my voice at all to speak over either the noise of the hull going over the water or, of course, the engines. And talking of the hull going over the water, well, it's making light work of whatever we're finding today, and anything that isn't handled by the hull, me as the helmsman at least, I've got the seat doing all the hard work for me. It really does make it a very, very relaxing boat to cover ground in, even when it's chopping up a bit. I mean, we're crossing Wash now, and as you can probably see, I'm not even thinking about changing the throttles. So he's just set here at 2,500 RPM, 25 knots into the chop, and we're doing 80 litres an hour across both engines. That's remarkable. Now, I said that you can have stern drive on IPS, and there are arguments for both. You know, IPS probably is slightly sharper on the joystick. I don't imagine it's much more efficient though. I mean, those slender stern drives, not much drag in the water. As I said, we've got twin 440 horsepower engines here, and we're pulling 80 litres an hour between both of them, doing 25 knots. That's impressive stuff. And at slow speed, the gap between the stern drive joystick and the IPS joystick is so narrow now. I think with the benefit of stern drives being they're slightly cheaper, I think they're probably slightly more efficient, and also you have the adjustment of the legs. So if you're doing work in the shallows, then you have the fact that you can bring the legs up if you need to. For me, that's what is part of what makes the stern drive so compelling. The other thing is how much fun they are. I mean, it's going to be a little bit bouncy for dear old Alex holding the camera, but I do just want to try and demonstrate quite how agile this thing is with this engine setup. It's amazing, really. Take one look at it and you wouldn't suspect it's quite as nimble from the wheel as it is, but it is fantastic to drive. It responds so nicely to inputs from the helm. The steering is light, but it's not overly light, so if you do want to just sit on the straight and narrow, it sits really, really firm. But if you do want to sort of manoeuvre your way down the backs of large waves, or pick your way through the troughs, or of course avoid an obstacle that you see last minute, if you need to make a quick turn, then it's almost immediate, and it's a really nice sharp angle of heel as well. The other thing to point out is this is a fast boat, 40 knots at the top end, meaning that if you want to cruise at 30-35 you absolutely can. And here at 32 knots we're doing 120 litres an hour across both engines. And 32 knots feels a little bit quick for these conditions, absolutely fine for the boat, but to be honest, when at 25 knots it's so refined and so quiet and so fuel efficient, I think that's probably where you'll find yourself most of the time. Fantastic view from this driving position as well. You sit, it's nice and commanding, it's nice and high. Of course, it's a wheelhouse packed with glass, so the all-round view is excellent. And even if you turn hard to port and maybe you get a bit blind spot here at your eye level, because you've got the glass sunroof, you can see through that and check the horizon even and her turns in that direction. So the view is excellent, and there's nice little details like having the pull-down screen as well to give you a bit of glare reduction if it's really bright. You do get a bit of glare in this window when it's really shining brightly, but they've got this nice pull-down screen over the windscreen so you don't get loads of glare coming in on a bright day. All of this adds into how easy this boat is not only to live with but to drive and to cruise. There's very little to think about really. With all of the electronics, how comfortable the driving position is, and also how refined the boat feels over a chop, you quickly relax into your journeys and you instantly feel that there's a level of capability here. I know it's not massively challenging today. We've tested this boat's big assist, the North Star 49. That video should already be on the channel, and that was properly testing conditions. And when you've tested the boat in those conditions, you believe in the DNA, and the 42 has all of that, just on a slightly smaller scale. But let's pull over now. We'll find somewhere sheltered in Southampton water and have a closer look around the decks and the interior. Starting back here on the bathing platform then, this particular boat has got a fixed version. You can have a hydraulic one if you want, not with the stern drives though, only with the IPS version. And as you can see, this owner has put the life raft back here. Of course you want to carry a tender, this is probably where you want to carry it, so if that's the case you're going to want to find somewhere else to stow that. But there are lots of different options aboard this boat if you don't want to have it sitting on the bathing platform. But it's a really good size, and you'll notice the practicalities right away, like the fact it's fully protected with a rubber rubbing straight that goes all the way around the boat, and even things like having this hatch here. This isn't storage, this is so on the stern drive version you can visually inspect the props. Of course the legs lift up as well, so if you've got things tangled around the props, hopefully you can sort that out without having to go under the boat. That's the start of what is a very practical machine, as we will find out. Now you have got double access into the cockpit. They could have done L-shaped seating to give you a wider access on one side, but they've gone for a smaller access on both sides, which I think actually works really well. It means you can access the cockpit from either side of the boat, and that gives you a nice seating area here as well. Now you've got full storage for all the fenders into that transom as well, and this boat has got a lot of fenders, but swallowing them all in one place, tucked out the way at the back of the boat, works very nicely. And this boat is actually really set up for fishing. That's what this particular owner enjoys. So you can see the rod holders dotted all over the place, and you've got bait wells built into this seat as well. Because of that, you can't fully open the engine hatches on the hydraulic system that you get on the standard boat, but we'll have a look at that later on and explain a bit about engine access towards the end of the tour. But yes, very focused on fishing this boat, and this cockpit works very well for it. Yes, you've got seating, but it doesn't dominate the whole area. You've got enough deck space. You can move around and you can hang the rods over the side without being impeded. You can see how effectively it could work for that use, and you can also see you've got slides for covers in here, so you can fully enclose this entire area, which in this comfort version, which includes these bigger aft doors, means you get a really nice connection between these two areas, and you can use them even when the weather isn't so good. Simple table here in the middle. Obviously you can have different finishes on that. If you want teak, you could have it. This boat's just got the fiberglass finish. It's all very practical. Wipe down, clean down. If this is a boat to be used to be fished, and you want it to be able to be looked after very easily. Heading down the starboard side deck, obviously it's symmetrical, full walk-around design as we'd expect from Nordstar, and it's very, very safe. You've got handholds pretty much wherever you look. Really nice high guardrails as well. I'm 6 foot tall, and you can see how high these come up to my waistline, and you can just put your hand under here as well. Yes, there are railings, but there's just always somewhere to grab onto on this boat. It does feel incredibly safe, and this is another key Nordstar design option. You see this across the range, because it's all well and good having the side doors, and you have got them on both sides, but what makes them really useful is when you can get from helm seat onto pontoon in pretty much one movement, which you can because you've got this guardrail here which opens up, flips backwards. You've got the lowered cutout here in the bulwark, making it very easy for the person driving the boat to get onto the pontoon and help out with crewing. And if you're on your own, the combination of this and having the DPS and the joystick makes this a very easy boat to handle single-handedly. Moving right forward, this is quite a utilitarian setup on this boat. They haven't got the optional sun pads here on the coach roof, so you've got this just sort of plain moulding here. Obviously you've got your hatch and some ventilation for the heads units, but yeah, not really a living space up here. There are things you can add to make it a bit more comfortable, but clearly this owner just sees this as, you know, a place to do a job, which is handle the lines, you've got the anchor up here of course, and this being a boat designed for Scandinavian waters, you've got the big platform forward, so it's very easy to step on and off from the bow, which is something they like to do very much in the Nordics. Let's head inside. At this point, it's worth pointing out that there are a few different versions of this boat. You can have it with or without a flybridge. Obviously, this boat hasn't got that. That gives you a sunroof and lots of space to put things like lights and other equipment that you need for navigation. And you can also have the standard version or the comfort package. And this particular boat has got the comfort package, and that is what really transforms the living spaces on this boat, because as standard you get one door to the side, access in from the cockpit in a U-shaped dinette. Here obviously you have these sliding doors that open, giving you this central access point, and also a lot more light, floor to ceiling glass all the way across the wheelhouse, supplemented by obviously full wraparound windows and the hatch. It's very, very bright in here, and obviously this boat's got a nice light oak wood finish as well, so again it feels really lovely and bright in here, and it does a very good job of combining these two areas. I mentioned it outside, but if you want to extend the indoor living space by having covers, then having these doors opening up like this works brilliantly, and when the weather's good, works very well too. And how about the actual layout? Well, it feels quite different to, you know, its competing rivals, Targa and Sargo. You have a more sort of leisure-focused arrangement, I would say. You have this sweep of dinette over on this side, nice big table that goes up and down, and obviously that extends out to twice its size. You've got some supports here, so it's got something to rest on when you open the leaves out. And then a really nice, clever addition is this floor section here raises up. So you've got a push button up here, the table goes up and down from a switch up here, but so does this section. And this will eventually raise all the way up to meet the bench. And you can see the cushion is tucked down there behind the door. You pull that off, put the cushion on, and then you have another seat at the end of the table. So you've got another person to join if you're dining inside. And that combined with the fact that you have the two-way seat here. Obviously this is a twin bench in Navigator formation, but you can push this way. And then again, you've got another couple of seats facing the table. Really clever pieces of design. Opposite, of course, you have the galley, and it stretches quite a long way down the starboard side, so you've got a decent amount of countertop. The sink isn't enormous. This particular boat hasn't got the dishwasher fitted, but this area down here is designed specifically to hold a dishwasher if you do want it. What you do have though is lots of storage. All under counter here is really good amounts of deep storage to keep your things away, keep everything tidy, and if you want to live on board for a couple of weeks, which people who own this type of boat do, you have enough storage in here to keep your kit nice and safe. You have got a domestic height fridge freezer. It's a little bit narrow, as you can see, it's got to fit into this unit here, but there's a reasonable amount of cooling space in there. Of course, you haven't had to go underneath the counter, so that gives you more storage space underneath the galley here. And what I should point out is that they've fitted a very good sized oven down here. That's probably slightly bigger than you'd expect to get on a boat of this style and size. So it's nice to have that, and then again, more storage dotted around all over the place. The benefit, as I've said, of having that sunroof, okay, you haven't got a flybridge, you've got this nice glass roof, so even when it's closed, draws down loads and loads of natural light, touch of a button at the helm and it opens up, and you can ventilate this area really well with two side doors that you can open at various stages along their runners, plus the sunroof. No matter what's sort of going on outside, you should be able to ventilate this area really nicely. There's a little surprise down there, which we're going to come to at the end of the interior tour. We'll head downstairs first though, just pointing out the fact you've got proper chart table over here. Okay, you've only got a single helm seat on this side, but you've got double navigator, and they've got a nice flat area with a bit of storage and somewhere to unfurl a paper chart if they want to. I suppose you've got to have somewhere for the TV. Looks a little bit incongruous up there, but you are slightly limited with your options on a boat of this style, so that's where they've put it. And then the other nice thing they have is a pull down screen here. So if it's very, very bright and you're getting a lot of glare, you've got a screen that pulls down, covers all three windscreens, and just means you don't have to rely completely on your sunglasses when it's a really, really bright day. Heading downstairs, some more clever design touches. This obviously is the owner's cabin. You come down to this sort of central lobby area. I've got the cabin behind me, really good sized double bed. That's very wide, nice and comfortable, and enough space to sit up and read in bed if you want to. The portholes aren't huge, so you don't get massive natural light, but again, the bright colour scheme on this boat, of course you could have walnut, darker woods if you want, but the oak colour scheme on this boat does really help brighten up these lower deck spaces. And you've got a hatch overhead for a bit of ventilation and more natural light, hang storage on both sides. And something that I think works particularly well is the decision to split the bathroom. So on the port side you have just a shower cubicle, which is a decent size. Okay, you have to step down a bit to go into it, but then I'm 6 foot, headroom goes up again, you can see it's okay in here. And there's a sink and a shower, but you've got no toilet encroaching on floor space. So Yeah, decent amount of space. And then the toilet has pretty much the same amount of room over there on the starboard side. And it also has direct access from this cabin. So if you have got people sleeping in the saloon, there is the option to have a berth up at the dinette if you want it. You just have a bit more privacy, which is key on a boat of this size. And splitting this means that someone can shower, someone can use the loo, and there's no queues in the morning. Now, I mentioned the little surprise. It wouldn't be a Nordstar without a sneaky secret cabin. And on this boat, it's under here, and this is another element that changes on the cruiser version. On the standard version, access is down there at the aft end, so you lose that clever seating arrangement that I mentioned. On this version, this is how you access the amidships cabin, and actually I think it works brilliantly, because once you've opened that stable style door, you've got a really nice wide entranceway down there. The steps are shallow, and if I just sort of hover around here, you can see that, yeah, there's standing headroom in this entranceway, almost across the beam, because there's another bathroom down here as well. Yes, headroom is a little bit restricted over the berths, because obviously you've got the saloon here, but as a space down here to move around and get changed at the end of the bed, it actually works very effectively. And it's having the separate bathroom. For me, that's the real clever bit of design. It means that guests do have total privacy, they don't have to be coming up and down the steps to use the toilet forward, and it makes this a really genuinely usable guest cabin. And there's flexibility within the berths as well, because at the moment it's set up as 2 singles, but there's an infill so you can make it into a huge double. It's a really useful second cabin. Let's check out the engine room. As I mentioned during the tour, because this particular owner has got cool box and bait well plumbed in at the end of this seating area here, you don't get the full opening deck hatch for the engine room that you would normally on the 42. So you have these quick access hatches, which you also get when you have the full opening hatch, but on this boat, instead of being quick inspection, this is sort of your full engine access. But it's still pretty good. I mean, you can see how easy it is for me to get down here and certainly visually inspect the engines. Okay, headroom's a bit tight over the top of them in this version, but again, if you've got the version where the whole hatch lifts up, that's really not going to be an issue. And there's plenty of space for stuff down here. You drop down to this big well where I'm standing, you can see the owner's got some kit stored here. You've got the generator tucked down here on the starboard side. If you were to have the extra fuel tank, you know, another 500 litres of fuel, that would go down here, or you have the Seakeeper. That's an option on this boat. That would go down here as well. And there'd still be plenty of space for big pieces of equipment like that. But day-to-day stuff, very easy to check the engines. You know, you really easily check the tension on the belts and the raw water strainers. You've got your fuel filters down here. So yes, access a bit restricted over the top, but checking everything, day-to-day stuff, perfectly easy from an owner's point of view. Let's get them fired up now then and see what she's like to handle in the marina. I said when we were at speed that you have the joystick option on the stern drive and the gap is closed between that and IPS, and it really has. It means when you come to the marine environment, you know, you hit the docking button just like you would on the IPS joystick. But before, with the stern drives, there was a lot of noise and commotion, and actually it didn't feel quite as effective. But now, it's remarkably quick to react, and I think the key thing is you don't get that effect of the stern moving ahead of the bow. When you push sideways, it truly goes sideways, and it does it quickly as well, and responds very, very quickly to inputs from the joystick. And the other thing that you have now that works faultlessly is DPS, the dynamic positioning system, which started on IPS but now works brilliantly on the stern drives as well. So like we're just hovering outside Hamble Point Marina now, I can hit that option on the joystick. The boat is taking a second to work out our coordinate, you know, where we are, our exact position, and then it will move the boat back and hold it in that exact position just using the engines. Remember, the bow thruster isn't involved in this process at all. That is not the way it works on Volvo stern drives and Volvo IPS. It is purely the legs here vectoring to keep the boat solidly in a central position. And if I didn't have crew with me, then this would be the time when this is ideal. I can get out on deck, hang the lines, hang the fenders, turn it off and head into the berth. The base price of the 42 with twin 440 horsepower engines on stern drives is just shy of £483,000 excluding VAT. Our test boat, specified to a high standard with extras totalling £125,000, came in at just shy of £623,000 excluding VAT. Pause the video now to see some of the key cost options it had fitted. I talked about this boat being in a sweet spot out in the water, but what you have is the size of a 42 footer, which means it's incredibly capable, the second largest boat in the Nordstar range, but also feels very manageable if there's 2 of you or even 1 of you. This arrangement, this layout, the walk around decks, the ease of movement around the boat, and also joystick control means that if you're using this 1 or 2 of you, it's very easy indeed. And it's flexible as well, with or without a flybridge, with or without that cruiser arrangement, a very clever layout on the lower deck, and all of that for south of £750,000 to this very high spec. I think all round it's a pretty remarkable package. Thank you for watching that review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give the video a like. We really appreciate it. If you want more Nordstar content, we tested this boat's flagship in properly rough conditions in the south of France. You can watch that if you click up here. If you want more of our sea trials, you can click down here. And if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, please click up here. I'll see you on the next one.